What happens when a rising star gets pushed too far on live television, when personal boundaries are crossed and the cameras keep rolling? That afternoon, the Kelly Clarkson show was supposed to be another smooth taping, another day of warm laughter, an easy conversation. But what unfolded became one of the most tense, unforgettable moments in daytime television history. A raw, unplanned confrontation between Grammy-nominated artist Teddy Swims and the host herself, Kelly Clarkson. It began, innocently enough, with the usual applause from the studio audience as Teddy walked onto the set, his signature warm smile lighting up the space. Kelly greeted him with her trademark enthusiasm, leaning forward with genuine excitement. As she praised his chart-topping new album and the depth of his voice, Teddy chuckled, attributing his vocal soul to years of singing in church, where he learned to feel the music rather than simply perform it. Then came the shift subtle at first. Kelly, following cues from her producers, steered the conversation toward Teddy's physical transformation over the years. She remarked on the significant amount of weight he had lost, framing it as part of his personal journey. Teddy's smile faltered just slightly, a flicker in the warmth, but he maintained composure, acknowledging that health and wellness had become important, especially while touring. Kelly pressed forward, noting how fantastic he looked and asking whether his transformation had been for his career or purely personal reasons. His reply was measured, personal. He said, emphasizing that health should always be about the individual. But the questioning didn't stop. Kelly leaned in again, this time suggesting that in the entertainment industry, image mattered, and wondering aloud whether Teddy's team had pressured him. Teddy's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly as he replied that his team had always valued him for his artistry, not his appearance. Still, Kelly continued, asking if, when he was heavier, certain doors hadn't opened for him the way they did now. The room seemed to tighten around them, the air growing heavier. Teddy held her gaze, his voice calm but edged as he said his weight had never defined his music, that the doors opened for his voice, his songwriting, his ability to connect, not for his body size. Kelly's expression wavered, but she pressed the point again, suggesting that, regardless of talent, the industry probably received him differently now, that this was simply the reality of show business. That was when Teddy's tone changed. He told her plainly that such thinking was a toxic part of the industry, perpetuated when people like her linked artistic success to physical appearance. The audience fell utterly silent. Kelly tried to reframe her comment as celebration, telling him he should be proud of what he had accomplished. Teddy rose from his chair. Pride, he said, should come from his music, from the connection with fans who saw themselves in his story, not from a number on a scale. Kelly, visibly flustered, asked him to sit, and insisted it was a miscommunication. But Teddy called her out directly, recounting each question she had asked everyone tied to his body rather than his craft. The tension in the studio was electric. Camera operators received frantic signals from the control room, but didn't dare cut away. Kelly, in an attempt to de-escalate, suggested Teddy was being overly sensitive, reminding him that she had spoken publicly about her own weight journey and thought he would appreciate inspiring others. Teddy's disbelief was palpable. Sensitive, he repeated the word as if it were an insult. He accused her of trying to cloak the exchange as an inspirational segment, while in reality, overshadowing his artistic achievements. By now, the audience was riveted, some squirming in their seats. Kelly defended herself again, insisting she was simply having an honest conversation and that fans were inspired by both his music and his transformation. But Teddy's final retort was firm there. Was everything wrong with making his body a headline over his music? Especially when it became the focus instead of the art itself? The cameras kept rolling. The air stayed thick, and the afternoon taping of the Kelly Clarkson show had just etched itself into the annals of daytime television history, not for a song, not for a laugh, but for a clash about respect, boundaries, and the line between curiosity and intrusion. Teddy's accent became more pronounced as his emotions intensified. When you spend 10 minutes talking about my body and haven't asked me a single question about the songs on my album, about the stories behind them, about the collaborations, about anything that actually matters to my artistry. His words hung in the air, sharp and unyielding. Kelly's defensive walls went up completely. I was getting to the music, Teddy. This is how interviews work. We talk about your life, your journey, all aspects of who you are. No. Kelly, this is how bad interviews work, Teddy replied, his voice steady but fierce. Good interviews focus on the work, the craft, the message. They don't reduce artists to their physical appearance and then gaslight them when they object to it. The word gaslight hung in the air like a bomb. Kelly's eyes flashed with anger, her composure finally cracking. Excuse me, did you just accuse me of gaslighting you? On my own show, I've been nothing but supportive and complimentary. I've been trying to celebrate your success, and you're attacking me for it. I'm not attacking you, Kelly, I'm calling out problematic behavior. There's a difference. Teddy's calm tone seemed to frustrate her even more. You've asked me if my team pressured me about my weight. You've asked if doors opened differently because of how I look. You've suggested my career success is tied to my physical transformation. And now, when I point out how harmful those questions are, you're telling me I'm being too sensitive and that I should be grateful. Asterisk Kelly stood up from behind her desk, something she rarely did during confrontations. You know what, Teddy, maybe you are being too sensitive. Maybe you need to understand that when you're in the public eye, people are going to notice changes in your appearance. That's part of being a celebrity. Asterisk, and maybe you need to understand that. Being a celebrity doesn't mean I have to accept being reduced to my physical appearance. Teddy countered, also rising from his chair, especially not from someone who claims to support artists and their journeys. The studio audience was dead silent, watching the unprecedented exchange unfold. Some discreetly reached for their phones, though security typically prevented recording during tapings. Asterisk, Kelly's voice took on a sharper edge. I have supported thousands of artists on this show. I've given platforms to people who needed them. Don't you dare question my commitment to supporting artists. Asterisk, then, act like it, Teddy said simply. Ask me about my music. Ask me about my music. Ask me about the messages in my songs. Ask me about the fans who write to me saying my music helped them through difficult times. Ask me about anything other than whether I look better now than I did before. Asterisk, fine, Kelly said, her tone icy. Let's talk about your music. Let's talk about how your newfound confidence, which clearly comes partly from your physical transformation, has affected your stage presence and your ability to connect with audiences. Asterisk, Teddy stared at her in disbelief. Are you serious? Right now, even when you're trying to ask about my music, you're still tying it back to my weight loss. You literally cannot help yourself. Asterisk, I'm trying to have a nuanced conversation about how personal growth affects artistic expression. Kelly defended, but her voice lacked conviction. Asterisk, no, Teddy said firmly. You're trying to justify your fixation on my appearance. By dressing it up as artistic analysis, personal growth and weight loss are not the same thing. Kelly, I've been growing as an artist for years, long before I lost a single pound. My confidence on stage comes from years of performing, from connecting with audiences, from honing my craft, not from fitting into smaller clothes. Asterisk, behind the cameras. Kelly's producer was making cutting motions across his throat, signaling to wrap it up. Kelly ignored him. Look, I think we need to agree to disagree here, she said, attempting to regain control. Let's move on to your upcoming tour dates. Asterisk, no, Teddy shot back. We're not moving on. We're not agreeing to disagree. What just happened here was wrong, and you trying to sweep it under the rug and move to tour dates is exactly the problem. Asterisk, the audience was mesmerized. This was unlike anything they had ever seen on daytime television. Kelly's face flushed with a mixture of embarrassment and anger. Teddy, I think you need to calm down. This is getting out of hand. Asterisk, IAM.com. Teddy replied steadily. What's getting out of hand is your inability to acknowledge that your line of questioning was inappropriate and harmful. What's getting out of hand is your refusal to understand why reducing an artist to their physical appearance is problematic. Asterisk, Kelly's voice rose. I never reduced you to your physical appearance. I complimented your transformation while also acknowledging your talent. Asterisk, you spent the first 10 minutes of this interview talking about my body. Kelly, 10 minutes. You asked me if my team pressured me to lose weight. You asked if my career benefited from my weight loss. You suggested the industry treats me differently now. Every single question was about my appearance, not my artistry. Asterisk, Kelly's frustration finally boiled over. You know what, Teddy? I think you came on this show looking for a fight. I think you wanted to create drama, and you're twisting my words to make me look like the villain here. Asterisk, the accusation hit the studio like lightning. Teddy's expression shifted from frustration to genuine hurt, then to something colder, more serious. Looking for a fight? He repeated slowly. Kelly, I came on your show to talk about my music, to connect with your audience, to share the stories behind my songs. I came here with nothing but respect for you and your platform. But what I found was a host who seems more interested in my pants size than my passion. Asterisk, that's not fair, and you know it. Kelly snapped back. I've built my career on supporting artists and celebrating their journeys. Don't you dare suggest I don't care about music. Asterisk, then prove it. Teddy challenged. Right now, ask me about my music. Ask me about the song I wrote for my grandmother before she passed. Ask me about the track that deals with addiction and recovery. Ask me about the collaboration with the gospel choir from my hometown. Ask me about anything that actually matters. Asterisk, Kelly paused, caught off guard by the direct challenge. The silence stretched uncomfortably long as she seemed to struggle with a response. I was planning to ask about those things, she finally said, but her voice betrayed doubt. Asterisk, when Teddy pressed, after another 10 minutes of asking if I feel more confident in my body now. After asking me to give weight loss tips to your viewers. After discussing my workout routine and diet plan. Asterisk, the accuracy of his predictions seemed to stun Kelly, and her silence confirmed what everyone in the studio was already thinking. Teddy shook his head sadly. You know what the worst part about this is? Kelly, I actually looked up to you. Teddy Swims sat across from Kelly Clarkson, the lights of the studio casting a warm glow that did little to soften the sharpness in the air. He looked directly at her, his voice steady yet charged with emotion, and told her he had watched her journey in the industry. He reminded her of the criticism she herself had faced about her appearance, of how she had spoken openly about it, and of how she had overcome that public scrutiny. I thought you would understand better than anyone why this conversation is so damaging, he said. For the first time, Kelly's expression softened, but the defensiveness in her voice lingered. I do understand, Teddy. That's why I thought you'd want to talk about overcoming those challenges. Asterisk, but Teddy's answer cut through her reasoning. I never asked to overcome anything, he replied, his voice laced with deep conviction. My body was never a challenge to overcome. My body was never an obstacle to my music. The only challenge was an industry that made me feel like it should be. His words landed in the studio with a weight that silenced the room. Not a cough, not a shuffle from the audience only, the stillness of people hanging on to every syllable. Some faces in the crowd softened with empathy. Others showed the strain of witnessing something far more real than they had expected in a midday talk show. Asterisk, I've spent years building my confidence as an artist. Teddy continued, leaning forward now, his presence filling the space. Years, learning to let my music speak for itself. Years trying to show people that talent comes in all shapes and sizes. And in 15 minutes, you've managed to undermine all of that by suggesting my success is somehow tied to my physical transformation. From behind the cameras, Kelly's producer was gesturing frantically, trying to steer the conversation away from the cliff it had reached. But neither guest nor host seemed aware of anything except the fire between them. Asterisk, Kelly tried to defend herself. I never said your success was tied to your weight loss. Her voice was quieter now, missing the confident lift it had earlier. Teddy didn't flinch. You didn't have to say it directly, he answered. Every question implied it. Every comment suggested it. And when I called you out, instead of listening and learning, you doubled down and told me I was being too sensitive. Kelly reached for control one last time. Teddy, I think we both got a little heated here. Why don't we take a breath and start over? I'd love to hear about your new album. Asterisk, but Teddy shook his head slowly. The decision, already made. No, Kelly, I don't think we can start over because starting over would mean pretending this conversation didn't happen. It would mean pretending that what you did was okay. And it's not okay. His hands moved deliberately to remove his microphone, each motion purposeful and final. Kelly's voice rose, tinged with alarm. What are you doing? Asterisk, I'm leaving, Teddy said simply. I came here to share my music with your audience. But instead, I got interrogated about my body. I came here to talk about my art. But instead, I had to defend my worth as a human being. I came here with respect, but I'm leaving with disappointment. The shift in the studio was palpable gasps from the audience, a ripple of shock, the sound of Kelly's chair scraping against the floor as she stood. Teddy, please don't do this, she urged, her tone now openly panicked. We can fix this. We can edit this segment. Start fresh. Asterisk, Teddy paused mid-step, turning back to face her. Kelly, the fact that your first instinct is to edit this out instead of learning from it tells me everything I need to know. This isn't about fixing a bad segment. This is about understanding why artists deserve better. He handed his microphone to a stunned audio technician whose hands trembled slightly as he took it. Then Teddy looked at Kelly one last time. I hope someday you understand that when you have a platform like this, you have a responsibility to use it thoughtfully. Artists trust you with their stories, their vulnerabilities, their dreams. That trust is sacred, and today, you broke it. Asterisk, the studio was frozen in a heavy silence. Teddy turned and began walking toward the exit, each step echoing in the tense air. Kelly's voice followed him, urgent now. Teddy, please, let's talk about this off camera. Don't leave like this. He stopped at the edge of the stage, slowly turning to face her, the audience, and the unblinking cameras. Kelly, he said, his voice calm but unyielding. I've said everything I need to say. My music speaks for itself. My talent speaks for itself. And my integrity speaks for itself. I don't need to justify any of those things to anyone, especially not on a show that seems more interested in my before and after photos than my before and after songs. Asterisk, and with that, Teddy Swims walked off the Kelly Clarkson show. The audience sat in stunned silence, their eyes tracking him until he disappeared from view. Kelly stood frozen behind her desk, her hands resting on the surface, the reality of what had just unfolded beginning to settle on her shoulders. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every beat of disbelief and the lingering electricity in the room. Some audience members exchanged glances, others stared straight ahead, still processing the honesty and the unfiltered human moment they had just witnessed. That asterisk, it would be talked about for days. whether Teddy was right to walk away, or whether he should have stayed and thought through the conversation. But one thing was undeniable. In that instant, daytime television had been stripped of its polish, revealing something far messier and far more real. Sometimes, when the cameras are rolling, the most powerful statement isn't a song or a speech. The moment someone decides they've had enough and walks away, not in anger, but in the quiet conviction of standing up for what they believe in, no matter the cost. Asterisk,